Okay, this is my classic round 4 game, and I was up against the FIDE master, Robert Lagerman. He's about 2360, so about 200 points higher than me on FIDE. I'm only 2150. I was playing white. I decided not to try and play e4 and some weird random stuff based on his opening repertoire. No, instead I played knight f3, which has served me well so far in my sort of club over the board season. Anyway, so we get an English transposition now, and I thought he was going to torture me with the symmetrical English, but to my great sort of relief, in this position he didn't carry on the symmetry of knight c6, he played d5, so I thought I wasn't in for a psychological torture session. However, I thought, hold on, maybe he likes this position, maybe he's played it before, because he's going to get a quick bind now after I take on d5 on this d4 square. And I was thinking, well, actually, what am I doing here? What active plan? And I came up with a crude idea inspired by one of my Muswell Hill games. Do you remember that game? I wonder if you remember that game where black played a quick, a5 to h5. Well, I played queen a4. So it's got the very crude idea of coming to h4, where things like knight g5 threaten mate. It's a bit childish, isn't it? A bit kindergarten chess. And also, I'm not sure it's that great actually. After his knight c6, well, let's say queen h4 is played here. Well, apparently. E5, well, this loses on the spot actually because of knight takes d5, so that's one trap which can be set, because if queen takes, then knight g5, so threatening mate, and also threatening the queen, so that would lose on the spot e5. However, he doesn't have to play e5. Ribka gives e6 with actually advantage to black straight away. Slight advantage. So it questions this whole thing. If knight g5 here, then something like h6, just getting the queens off, and black would maintain that strong bind on d4. So say knight g4, just taking, and black's better. In fact, crippled pawn structure, and now c4 or something, or even knight f4, black's clearly better. Not just slightly better, clearly better. Knight f4, much better. So this is the kind of disaster which I was originally planning, just to play queen a4 to h4. So something occurred to me in this position that do you remember the game with Pogo Nina where she had the queen c4 tactic? Well, it was attacking two pieces in that game, but here queen c4 attacks the knight and pawn, and a lot of the strategic issues are solved. If black had played knight takes c3, then d takes c3, so I'm testing the d4 square now with this pawn, and now look, there's no knight on f6, which means h7 is weaker, which means queen h4 is actually effective in this position. If I don't have to worry about a bind on this d4 square, then coming to h4 isn't bad, probably. So say queen b6, queen h4, it might be a reasonable move here. There's no massive evaluation plummeting after queen h4, because the strategic problems are not present here. Although it's still giving black with a tiny advantage. No, it's changed its mind. So in fact, white's actually okay here, but he didn't want this position. And he played a gambit instead. This is where the sort of bluffing strategy that I talked about, where people spend a long time to play a move and they offer a pawn. Do you remember my last game at the British? Someone offered a pawn and I didn't take it. And some of you are saying, well, why didn't I take it? It's because if someone takes a long time and they play a move like knight db4, you start to believe them that they're 200 points higher as well, which adds to the sort of bluff element, partial bluff. So, do you take the pawn or do you just try and do something else? The problem is here, what else can I do? I'm committed to taking the pawn. If I play a3, for example, then knight c2. I mean, black's better here. He's wrapping himself around the d4 square, and now here it's not so good. You know, to take on c5, I presume. Bishop f5, and actually there's a problem now. Say d3, knight takes. This is a Rybkin situation. I don't really know what's going on here. Queen takes d3. Well, anyway, there's loose tactical things going on which Rybka sees, but of course I didn't see that variation. But I just didn't want the knight to go immediately to c2. So actually, well, I took anyway. On c5, I thought I'll call the bluff, and he plays bishop f5. I thought, well, the logical move here. I actually want to develop my queenside pieces because I've had enough embarrassing games where I'm seen to be a complete muppet because I can't even develop my queenside pieces. So I thought, you know, please let me just develop this queenside bishop, yeah, so I don't look like a complete idiot in all the databases. So I played d3. And, you know, I'm close to actually having connected rooks. That magical thing, you know, where these rooks are actually able to see each other. Knight c2, rook b1. And he plays rook c8. So the ferocious gambit, or so it seemed at the time, continues. However, I noticed another little detail here. A bit like, you know, the Columbo, where you notice all these tiny details. That the knight here did actually leave the b4 square, and what is significant about that? Well, the knight was actually protecting d5. So I suddenly noticed, hold on a sec, I first noticed that there was the queen d5 possibility if I wanted to sort of gain a tempo, sort of offer, you know, a trade of queens. But then I noticed something else. I know he's threatening this seemingly menacing knight d4, harassing my queen. So guess what I noticed? If you can visualize it with all these arrows everywhere, what did I notice here in this position, which apparently is not, by the way, the strongest move. Rybka gives something else, but that's besides the point. But what do you think is a good move? 5 seconds, starting from now. So ferocious gambit position you're faced with. What do you play? Okay, I played knight d5. And white has an advantage still after this move. So knight d4. Now, in this position, I can play knight takes e7 check. So I'm actually playing check. That's nice, isn't it? King moves, I can take the rook. So I'm discouraging knight d4. So I've thrown a spanner in the works, literally, to his gambit. So he plays knight 2 d4. And he starts going a bit downhill. I take, and he has to take with the bishop. So no knight d4s for him so far. Queen b5, attacking another pawn, and he plays here bishop e6. And I was thinking about actually playing e4, but I didn't really like to wreck my structure completely. Apparently Rybka doesn't mind this. Bishop takes, e takes, knight e5. So even though I've got double pawns, this is okay apparently. Bishop e3, and white's okay. But I didn't do that. I played actually what Rybka considers a very strong move. I played knight f4, just offering a2 pawn, because I want to wreck his structure. Bishop a2, rook a1, bishop retreats. Well, he took on a2. Now, if the bishop retreated, then knight e6 and queen b7. But he didn't do that. He played a6, so he started attacking my queen. And I just munched his pawns. I munched that one, then I munched another. And at this point, during the game, actually, I was thinking of a video title for you guys, and I was thinking, what shall I call this game? Something to do with bluffing, calling the bluff or something, or anyway. So I just thought it's like one bluffer and another. Why can't I just take these pawns? Prove where the compensation is. Because if there's no clear weaknesses, what is the theoretical basis for all these pawn sacrifices? Because at the moment, the point of the pawns is that they provide pegging points for the centre and for the pieces to be in stable positions. Here, they're all getting loose. Look at this, knight b4. I played just queen a4. Loose, loose, loose. I mean, a lot of his pieces are loose here. And one variation I looked at here, if queen d6, I can get potentially 3 pieces to the queen. rook takes a2, rook a7, seemingly clever skewer, but maybe I just take there and I'm better. Free pieces of the queen, I'll quite enjoy this. But he didn't play that actually. He played queen b8, and here there's a very simple move which just exploits the loose pieces, which you might get a clue from the highlights. It was actually bishop d2, yes. So the bishop moves, I just take the bishop here. Bishop b2, I just take that and get 2 pieces for the rook. Or something like that. Actually, this is quick look. Rook a7, Rybka's going on about. Rook a7 here. Well, there's still, okay, there's a resource there, which comes up in the game anyway, so I'll show you it in the game continuation. What he plays here is bishop c5,